Hi there, this is Teri from stampingmagic.com. Welcome back to my channel. Today's card is a masculine card using Geared Up Garage. It takes less than 15 minutes to complete, and I'm going to show you the process mostly in real time so you can see step by step how to create it. Let's get started. These are all the supplies that you need. Now, from my stock, I've pulled a portrait basic black card base and also a whisper white mat. Now, I have multiples of both of these already prepared, so when I'm making a card, I can just go to my stock and pull out what I need. Then I have a sheet of the 6-inch Classic Garage Designer Series paper. I have some black foil, a piece of real red cardstock, which in my original card I used crushed curry. I have another piece of basic black and some silver foil for the stamping. Now, to create the black and the real red mat, I'm going to cut these using the rectangle stitched framelit dies. And from the larger grouping, I'm picking the middle two. The larger one I'll use to cut out the black mat, and then the slightly smaller one I'll use to cut out the real red mat. And then to cut out the sentiment, I'm using one from the smaller grouping, the second size up. The remaining dies that I'm going to use come from the Garage Gears Thinlit die set, and that's the toolbox and also the oil can. And then as my background piece, I'm using the large cogs die. I'm using my Stamper Artist to do the stamping today, and I'm using the sentiment, the oil can and the toolbox from the Geared Up Garage stamp set. I have my piece of silver foil. I'm going to anchor it with my magnet. Then I'll position all the stamps onto the silver foil and pick them up with the plate. I'm placing my stamp case underneath the plate to make the surface level. This makes it much easier to ink up your stamps. And I'm using black StazOn ink. And then I'll stamp down onto the silver foil. They stamped perfectly the first time, so I didn't need to go again. But if you find that you don't get a perfect stamped impression, then you can re-ink your stamps and stamp again over the top of the first impression. Now I'm using StazOn Remover to clean my stamps, and this is also giving my stamped images just a few seconds to dry. Because I'm stamping on a non-porous surface, it doesn't dry immediately, so you want to make sure your images are completely dry before carrying on. I'm going to do all the big shot cutting now, and it's just a standard sandwich that you need, so your platform, your thin die adapter and an acrylic sheet, then the cardstock and your die. Now, because this is a rectangle in shape, I don't want the straight edge to go through the big shot first. I want it to go in at an angle. This just makes it easier to send it through. So that's my black mat complete. And then I'm going to do the same with the real red mat. Again, sending it through at an angle. and then I'm going to cut the cog piece from that black foil, and again I'm sending it through at an angle, and I'm going to go forward and back and then forward and back again. It's a very intricate die, so you want to make sure it's completely cut through, and then just to check it, I flipped the plates over and I'm making sure I can see all the cuts on the underside. If I didn't, then I'd send it through again upside down. And then I can cut out the stamping. As I said, make sure the ink's dry before you do this. Now you could put all three dies on together, but I've just found it's easier to do one at a time. You could use your magnetic plate for this, but I just prefer to use the multi-purpose platform. I'm now going to pop out all those little pieces from the cogs, and I'm just using my fingers and a pokey tool to do this. I've no idea where my die brush is at the moment. I think if I had it, this would have taken a lot less time. Now I have speeded this part of the video up. I'm sure you don't want to sit there and watch me do the whole thing at normal speed. I'm going to cut the Classic Garage Designer Series paper down to size now. Now, if you're using A4 cardstock, then you want to trim this to 10 centimeters by 14.4 centimeters. If you're using 8.5 by 11 inch cardstock, then you want to trim it to 4 inches by 5.25 inch. For decorating the inside, I'm going to use the oil can. This time I'm stamping with Memento Tuxedo Black ink because I'm going to colour using the Stamping Blends alcohol markers. So I'm just going to stamp my image down in that bottom right corner. I'm going to use the light and dark smoky slate, the dark real red and the light basic black, and I'm just colouring that tube with the basic black, and then I'm going to colour most of the rest of the can with the light smoky slate and just leave that middle band for the real red. I've switched to the dark smoky slate and I'm just adding a little shading just over those hash lines. and then finally the real red. Then I can add that matte to the inside of the card. And then I can add the Classic Garage Designer Series paper to the front of the card. Now I can finish decorating the front of the card. And first off, I'm going to layer my two mats together. And then I can add these centrally to the front of the card. I'm going to add dimensionals to the back of the sentiment piece, but everything else will be glued flat onto the card. If you have some of our multi-purpose adhesive sheets, you could have added that to the back of the black foil before cutting it out with a die. This would have made sticking it onto the card a lot quicker to do. But there's actually quite a lot of room on the back of this die cut to add wet glue, which is what I decided to do. And then we can add glue to the toolbox and the oil can and position those. And then finally remove the backings from the dimensionals on the sentiment, and this I'm going to place at the midpoint, straight across that centre panel. And that's it, the card is finished, and it took less than 15 minutes to complete. And here's my original one. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notifications bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. Bye for now.